We have been all talking about cloud for almost like 8-9 years now. And it has interestingly moved from the aspect when people used to actually not really believe in the promises what cloud was making at one point in time, to the levels where it is definitely revolutionizing the way businesses are consuming, disseminating, perhaps processing the information as well. What we are discussing today in this conversation is something called virtual private cloud, perhaps something which can take the baton further. To discuss with me on this, what exactly is going to it means for CIOs, how it's going to actually revolutionize the way we are looking at hybrid cloud, perhaps call it hybrid cloud 2.0, is with me three gentlemen who will be actually taking this conversation further. Please welcome Karan Kripalani, Associate Vice President, Product Management, Netmagic and Entity Communication Company. Joining him is Peter Gartenberg, General Manager, Enterprise and Partner Group for Microsoft, and Ashok Shenoy, Director, Data Center and Cloud Sales, India and SAARC, Cisco. Welcome, gentlemen. So as I said, this has been going on as a conversation. Karan, if I can actually put this question to you. There might be situations where somebody might just say, hey, virtual private cloud might be, old wine, new bottle, something like that, an old concept, perhaps a new buzzword. What's your take? How are you defining VPC?
Yes, it's a hybrid cloud, but it's a hybrid cloud deployed in a fashion that's not been seen before. It's a seamless interconnect between your public and private infrastructure with a single pane of glass that offers visibility, governance, and management across infrastructure that you may have on the public cloud as well as on the private cloud. It offers interconnects not just between Netmagic or entity clouds, but with third-party clouds as well, with Microsoft clouds, with Cisco clouds, with customers' on-premise clouds. And to have all of that within manageable by a single pane of glass, and you have visibility, governance, and management across everything, it's not something that's been done before. So in that very, very significant aspect, it's very different from what's been touted in the past as a virtual private cloud or a hybrid cloud. Interesting.
Ashok, if I can ask you, taking the cue from what Karan was mentioning, how easy or otherwise, in your opinion, is actually for CIOs to take virtual private cloud as an extension to the enterprise infrastructure what they have? And what needs to change for it all to actually start to make sense?
Yeah, Gunjan, so, in continuing with what Karan just mentioned, our customers are growing significantly. And this growth is not necessarily linear, right? And also in a very volatile market. So given these conditions, their current on-prem infrastructure is hugely overutilized.
Right.
And for any further burst of data that needs to come out during a point in time, the only option they had so long was to move to the public cloud. Now, given the perceptions and the doubts that people had over security and governance, moving just plainly to a public cloud with critical data, the VPC that it sort of falls completely in line with what large enterprises would like to do, right? And this is if you keep some things in mind like agility, go-to-market, flexibility, right? Outside of that, if you wrap all of these things with a security offering, it makes that entire VPC look like a branch office or maybe another data center, right? As far as the primary data center is concerned. So to that extent, the ease of use is very seamless. The VPC falls exactly in place of what the customers would be looking for.
Right.
So the moving the enterprise networks getting expanded is a significant part of what we do as customers move towards VPC.
Absolutely. You raised pertinent points about security, governance, and others as well. I'll come back to it, but before I can do that, Peter, if I can bring you in the conversation. Now, a large part of this cloud journey and the story we had been talking about all this while has always been about infrastructure. But we all know that enterprise applications are where the rubber meets the road. Now, in this scenario, especially when we are discussing virtual private cloud and talking about the seamless transition of workloads across the different forms of clouds, no boundaries in that sense, how do you see the dots now connecting?
Well, I think you're seeing it's an undeniable movement to cloud. And what's really driving that is that our customers and organizations around the world are digitizing their business.
Yep.
And they're engaging in different aspects of digital transformation. So they're bringing new types of services, new types of business models
Right.
to the market. And what's driving that fundamentally is cloud technologies. And so Microsoft's view on that is for an enterprise-grade cloud, it should, at its very fundamental level, have, of course, a private element, a public cloud element, but fundamental to an enterprise-grade architecture was always the hybrid cloud. And that's why we're very excited by this partnership with on this virtual private cloud, is because it really leverages a strategy that we think is fundamental for our customers, and that is that they don't need to do one or the other. Their hybrid allows them to choose and move to the cloud in a way that makes sense, the way that drives their digital transformation journey most effectively. And we see this as a great offering and partnership in the market to serve those customers that are, making those kind of choices without forcing them to choose between private, public.
Right.
We don't think that's relevant. What is impactful to the customer is, and what gives them the most choice and flexibility is what we believe an enterprise-grade cloud should offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Karan, I think you call it simply VPC, right?
Correct.
And you already have a well-established public cloud offering as well.
Correct.
So how is simply VPC synergizing with your offering? How is it operating in separate silos, or is there a kind of connection between them?
That's a very, very good question. So Simply VPC is the new virtual private cloud service. It's a hosted private cloud where the compute is completely dedicated to the customer, and your storage and networks are very securely, logically isolated.
Right.
Simply Cloud, on the other hand, has been our very, very highly certified, very, very compliant, very highly recognized and awarded public cloud offering that's been in the market since 2010. What we're finding now is that there's a very, very strong interplay between the two. They don't necessarily work in silos. And it comes to what Peter's been talking about, which is the hybrid cloud, right? Where you've got customers who could be deploying for the same application, for the same requirement, part of the infrastructure or part of the application on Simply VPC with a burst or their web app layer on Simply Cloud, because Simply Cloud allows you to scale on demand. It supports a wide variety of scaling options. You can pay by the hour. So what we're looking at is a holistic 360-degree offering where it's all about, and again Peter alluded to this as well, it's all about giving the customer the freedom and the choice to choose components of a solution that fits their needs best. So within a single deployment, you could have part of it on VPC and you could have part of it on the Simply Cloud, which is the public cloud offering. Or you could split your requirements where a particular application, let's assume SAP HANA, for example, because of compliance reasons, is going to go purely onto the Simply VPC, and a large, scale-out web application is going to go purely on the public cloud. Yes, you could argue that there are times where these two might take customers away from each other as well. But to be honest, it's a happy place for us to be because we're offering customers a lot more choice in terms of selecting the right hosting platform on the cloud for their needs.
Anyway, they're complementing each other seamlessly.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. But what happens to the existing legacy? You mentioned, say, SAP HANA, etc. They are modern apps. These are the apps which have been, tried, tested, built for cloud in that sense.
True.
We can move to it. What happens, we have been talking about the seamless integration with the existing legacy, with the legacy which cloud CIOs have.
So the beauty about Simply VPC is because it's a completely on-demand service, as compared to traditional bespoke private clouds, where, as you know, there's a long lead time for, hardware delivery, implementation. I have simply VPC grids in my data centers in India. And what that allows me to do is, while I'm engaging with a particular customer, while we're going back and forth in terms of isolating the solution, talking turkey on, contracts and things like that, what we're able to do is to work with the customer's IT team to do proof of concepts, run POCs on the grid while we're actually having business and contract discussions with our customers as well. So when it's time to actually put pen to paper, they actually have a completely certified, workable solution that their technical teams have already signed off on, where they've tested legacy applications onto the Simply VPC service. It's possibly already running over there. It's just a question of putting pen to paper and flipping the switch and making it go live.
Makes sense, makes sense. Now, Ashok, you had mentioned when you were speaking about the governance and the concerns which usually people used to have, and taking that cue further, that has been the conventional wisdom. The public cloud, I don't know, what's going to happen to my data. However, when you start to look at it, the kinds of infrastructure and the kind of technologies which have been put in to set up those things are perhaps miles apart from a standard organization would have done by themselves. In that sense. Now, how do you think, taking that as a point, public and in extension the hybrid cloud, actually improve security and governance and reduce risk for the organizations, as against to the conventional wisdom which is out there? What's your take to it?
Yeah, it's a myth, to be honest, that moving data to the cloud is fraught with risks. But you can't blame customers for thinking like that, because when you move all your data, or especially your critical data, to a off-premise, the general feeling is that it is now in a very risky environment. But a VPC, and a well-implemented VPC, actually narrows the gap between a well-implemented private cloud and the benefits of the public cloud. Right? And if you take an example of a customer moving his data to a public cloud, he can use the virtual switch as a service to get the same security parameters or policies that he would get otherwise on his on-prem infrastructure. Right? With Cisco's recent acquisition of Clicker, right, we actually allow a lot of data and applications to be moved from one infrastructure to another, and it creates a securitized tunnel through which we can do it. So this complements what we do with our intercloud fabric, right? And it works beautifully. For example, you have an on-prem infrastructure or a private cloud that you've built, and you've sort of bulletproofed it with a lot of security. And then you go on to Netmagic's VPC, right? Clicker will actually allow you to move data with no risk on either security or the compliance aspect that may sort of follow on movement of data. Right. So to that extent, I feel that a large part of understanding or explanation to customers on how these things happen, right, actually clears a lot of doubt on their perception of risk in a non-prem kind of infrastructure.
Right. Okay. Karan, increasingly, Indian CIOs, when we had been talking to them, not only they're talking about, hey, the benefits of the cloud and what do I do with it, they're also, for whatever it's worth, are getting concerned about not just transitioning, but perhaps the egress as well, perhaps transitioning out as well, if there is a seamless way to do it. They are also looking, before they actually step in, they're also looking for the assurance for a seamless and perhaps less painful way to exit if there is a need be. If that is the case, how do you respond to such a request?
So, in a truly cloud world, egress should be ideally as quick and as painless as ingress. The easier you make it for customers both to come in as well as to leave, if they choose, I believe the better off you are as a service provider. It's unfair to try to artificially restrain customers from leaving if they so choose. And to that end, we sometimes, quite often, go the extra mile to actually help a customer move out if he so chooses. You know, fortunately, it doesn't happen very often because we don't have a lot of customer attrition. But in the event that, let's assume a customer had a time-bound project, 6 months, it could have been a marketing campaign, could have been a test dev or a development project. They port into the cloud, and there are multiple methods that we help them to port in. But equally importantly, there are multiple methods that you need to help them to port out. And these could be things like, you know, allowing them to take digital images out of the servers and, you know, the storage that they have, giving that to them in the form of a disk or emailing it to them in the form of a server image.
Right.
The other thing is that we allow customers to do is we allow customers to securely take their data out on physical drives or media if need be. Because, you know, sometimes if it's a large volume of data, doing it over the wire is not really practical. So we allow customers to come in, mount their drives in a secure staging area, securely connect only to their servers, download their data, and exit. The other concern that customers have sometimes is, all right, I may have ported out, I may have taken my data with me. What is the assurance that I have that my data is now deleted from, you know, the cloud? So we actually have you know, documents around this. We have runbooks around this, and we actually show customers you know, how data is not just deleted, but it's wiped. And it's not just wiped, it's wiped multiple times. So we're actually able to give customers assurances around the privacy of their data that goes beyond just, you know, port in and port out.
Right.
And I'm sure Microsoft and Cisco do the same.
Absolutely, fair point. New way to do business in that sense. Absolutely correct. Now, you know, in nutshell, what I had been hearing, what I was hearing you guys for the last 20 odd minutes was like, at the end of the day, it's all about marrying the best of all the worlds and bringing it together from the scalability, manageability, governance, burstability, whichever way you look at it, and bring it out to this new way of doing business, and ultimately perhaps taking it closer to the concept of hybrid cloud, you know, in its true form, in that sense, and perhaps revolutionizing the agility and the way we have been talking about all of the other things. Interesting conversation. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.